Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Myth. So, taking another fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening because over the weekend, Infidelity released his Mega Man 3 port for Super Nintendo utilizing the MSU1 enhancement chip if you want a brand new guitar soundtrack. And Infidelity has been doing an absolutely awesome job bringing all of these NES games over to Super Nintendo with so many quality of life improvements, modifications, and new soundtracks. The work he does is absolutely spectacular and I love showcasing it on the channel. And the best part is this works on MiSTer FPGA, it'll work on software emulation, and if you have the right multi-cart, it'll work on real Super Nintendo hardware as well, so long as the cart will support the MSU1 enhancement. But right off the top, this is still the Mega Man 3 you know, love, and remember. It is just now running on the Super Nintendo versus the NES. That means this game is as hard as it ever was. Capcom absolutely went 10 out of 10 brutal in my opinion on Mega Man, and you will see me struggle a little bit because it's been a couple years since I played this. But honestly, getting this over on Super Nintendo in and of itself is a feat, and I will show you in a little bit, but this does cover both the new and improved soundtrack as well as the original soundtrack, so you have more than one way to listen to the game. But seeing these titles run on Super Nintendo in and of itself is a feat. It requires a lot of porting of a lot of different hardware and software code over to the Super Nintendo for this to run exactly like it would on an NES. So for that point alone, this is absolutely amazing, and I love that Infidelity tests on all systems as well. He actually delayed the release of this a tiny bit until he could confirm that there was a full playthrough on the MiSTer FPGA side of things, and I always forget the timing here. You need to jump sooner than you would think, and that is the fun part about Mega Man 3. It's always going to surprise you, and it's always going to kill you in new and inventive ways, but it's that new and inventive murder method that actually makes this game so much fun to play and becomes so addicting, even if you are going to see the game over screen a ton of times until you actually go through and beat the game and see the credits scroll. And that is just why Mega Man is so much fun, and it's just so great to get ports like this. They work across every single platform you could possibly want to try them on, so if you don't have a MiSTer FPGA, you don't have real Super Nintendo hardware with the right cart to be able to get the MSU1 enhancements, you can go ahead and just use a standard software emulator and get the exact same experience. So I love that Infidelity tests across all platforms to make sure everyone can get in on the fun. And again, sometimes when I do these videos, people aren't really sure what is the point of porting something to Super Nintendo if it looks like an NES game. The point is, why not? I get that these don't have a ton of visual improvements, it's all on the audio soundtrack and just as a proof of concept, but that still is a ton of fun, and it's important to have all of these things. For every single port to a new console that has completely different graphics, getting something like Mega Man 3 coming over to the Super Nintendo with the MSU1 audio, but maintaining the exact same graphics that you remember from back in the day is honestly my preferred way to see something like this, because for 8-bit on NES, Mega Man had absolutely spectacular graphics, the colors, the sprites, everything just has aged so well, and it's one of those things I really wouldn't want this to be visually improved whatsoever. And don't worry, I will give you a sample of the new soundtrack for this port in just a moment. But again, the performance here is spectacular. I checked this out on MiSTer FPGA, but I know I've talked to people that have played this on real hardware and on software emulation, and the reports across the board are this is just 100% stable. You can play it like you're playing a real copy of the game on the NES. Now, of course, if you do have a copy of this game, is it worth playing again? Absolutely. Get that new soundtrack, get some more fun in. You should always be playing Mega Man, and for me, honestly, I probably should have not waited a couple years to take a new stroll through this game. But that's the great part about ports like this as well. It kind of makes you come back and revisit a game that you probably should have played recently but just haven't gotten around to yet. And again, you get multiple options within this release. If you don't want to listen to the brand new soundtrack, you do not have to. You can go with the original NES music that is being emulated on Super Nintendo, or you can go with the brand new soundtrack as well, so I'll give you a sound sample in just a bit. But sometimes this game will absolutely just troll you, and it can be a little bit glitchy in my opinion. Not the port itself, and that death there is my fault, but the actual gameplay of Mega Man 3. If you stand in the wrong spot here, this cloud will just buck you, and I completely forgot about that, ended up dying. But here is the new soundtrack. It is super guitar heavy, sounds kind of like 80s metal. I absolutely love it. Listen, I'll be right back with more of this port. I just absolutely love the hard rock guitar soundtrack for Mega Man 3. It fits the vibe, the visual, and the overall gameplay so well. Now I'm going to try to pronounce the creator of that soundtrack's name correctly. It is a very complicated name, Krzysztof Metzlowikowski. If I got that right, points to me. If I got it wrong, I tried like hell, and I do the best I can. But honestly, that guitar music coming out of the MSU1 chip on the Super Nintendo core for MiSTer, a software emulator, or real hardware, it just sounds absolutely incredible, and it really does drive the action and pacing forward ever so slightly better than the original soundtrack in my opinion. And don't get me wrong, the original soundtrack to Mega Man 3 was and still is an absolute classic, but it is just fun to have something different to listen to. And again, if you are not into these guitar riffs, you do not have to listen to them whatsoever. You can go back to the main menu and just pick the original soundtrack. And I love that Infidelity leaves these options to the player. It's not just a new game with a new soundtrack. He doesn't make the choice for you. He gives you all of these options, and you can play the game and enjoy it however you want, which is a great design perspective in my opinion. And as you kind of just play around a little bit more here, what I will say, at least on real hardware on MiSTer FPGA, the latency is absolutely zero. If you die, it is because you made a mistake in this game, or the game trolled you into taking a death. I haven't tried this on a software emulator yet, so if you have, let me know down below, but for the most part, software emulation for Super Nintendo is absolutely spectacular, zero complaints, but I'm just telling you what I tested it on. And again, I love the fan community doing stuff like this. There's technically no real reason to port Mega Man 3 over to the Super Nintendo. You could just play it on the NES, you could play it with a new soundtrack. It really doesn't need to be on SNES. But why not do something fun? Why not use the MSU1 enhancement? And why not have more fun with a game that pretty much everyone remembers from back in the day? That is why I love these mods so much. It's just a new way to play a very familiar game. And again, if you haven't played in a while, do be prepared to die a lot. I always hate these block segments here. I always feel like I'm just like one frame behind where I need to jump, and they definitely are a little bit puzzly. But I really do appreciate that about Mega Man 3 in general on the gameplay front. It does let you slow down, it does let you do a little bit of puzzle solving and platforming, and kind of just changes up the pace every once in a while, because again, getting the right cadence here can be slightly tricky, but once you figure it out, you really do get a great sense of accomplishment, because you actually want to wait and phase through the blocks as they come in. But then of course, it's going to throw you into an open pit in just a moment, and until you learn the patterns, you're 100% going to have to die and learn the game again. But the great part is, this is so much fun to play. You're going to want to just keep coming back, and you'll see even the main menu here has so much charm and so much unique flair. Infidelity has put a detail in pretty much everything that's not original from Capcom. But one more taste of the soundtrack. This next one is my favorite, and I'll be right back. It just works so well as an alternate soundtrack, and I love hearing that music. And again, if you want to play this on real hardware, on MiSTer FPGA, or even some software emulation with some trickery, this is outstanding on a CRT television or a PVM. But honestly, getting a direct capture here, it looks clean as well. So however you play this game, the only mistake you can make, the only wrong decision you can make, is not checking it out in the first place. The second wrong decision is not playing it in like 3 years and becoming absolutely garbage in some spots because you totally forgot the patterns. But if you want to download this today, I will leave a link to Infidelity's Twitter where you can grab this information from him and start playing. But again, I just love this, from the intro bump screen to the menu selection of what game you're going to be playing. This is a fan love letter to Mega Man, and honestly, it's a franchise that pretty much everyone loves. So getting more Mega Man on Super Nintendo with that MSU1 chip enhancement is just a 10 out of 10 project. I love seeing stuff like this, and I can't wait to see what Infidelity covers next. But if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and tell me what the next game you would love to see get ported from NES to SNES is. I'd be very curious to hear what your picks are down below. But short of that, we're done. Go play Mega Man, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.